Protesters have been demonstrating in Iran and around the world. The reason? The death of a young Iranian woman. I talked to some people at DePaul about these momentous developments in Iran. About 6 weeks ago, 22-year-old Mahsa Amini died after being arrested by the so-called morality police in Tehran, Iran, for allegedly not wearing her hijab, the Muslim head covering, according to regulations. Morality police enforce the country's requirements for women to dress and act a certain way. DePaul professor Karim Pakrivan is an international issue strategist and was born in Iran. Professor Pakrivan says Iranian women have a history of resisting the regime.
Iranian women have been always at the forefront of the struggle again for freedom. They still have much more power than in some other Islamic countries like Saudi Arabia and others. I mean, they can work, they can drive. Majority of students in universities are women. There are women in all the professions.
Amini was arrested on September 13th and died just 3 days later. Police say the cause of death was a heart attack. Her family and Iranian protesters, however, say that's not true. They say the 22-year-old had no pre-existing heart condition and believe she was beaten to death. Police released a video of Amini collapsing on the back of a chair at a detention center before falling on the floor. After her death, protests started and spread throughout the world. Women at these protests burn hijabs or cut their hair to show resistance. The associate professor for women's and gender studies at DePaul, Leila Farah, says the protests are more than just about hijabs.
And the piece of cloth actually has nothing to do with it. What it is that it's about authoritarianism. And it's about how authoritarianism desperately needs to control the population. And what better way to control the population than if you control 50% of it by controlling their bodies?
The death of Amini sparked resistance among not only women, but also men.
The average age of the young men protesting are young. So we're looking at from high school boys to guys up into their 30s. And they are shoulder to shoulder with their sisters. They are just like, stop it. We're done. We don't want to be controlled. That is significant.
Here in Chicago, we talked to an Iranian student who asked not to be identified. The student's voice has been modified. The student remembers first hearing about Amini's case.
I went to a restaurant and I sat down with my friends and I just started bawling my eyes out. I just started crying frantically because I just kept saying, that could have been me. Not to take away from her experience, but I was just trying to make them understand how close that was. I was like, she's my age. That could have been me.
The student remains in touch with friends and family who live in Iran.
They all say, please just pray for us, which is something that you don't want to hear because while it is super comforting to pray, it's also a feeling of hopelessness.
The student felt guilt when hearing about Amini's case.
A feeling of, I should be there, I should help, I should say something. I'm sitting here in the comfort of my home in Chicago, They're not. They hear gunshots, they hear yelling, they hear screaming.
The student would protest in Iran, if possible.
What could have my mother said to me that would have made me not want to go fight for this? There's nothing, I can't think of a single thing. And in a way, I think that she would want me to do it, but at the same time, she would be afraid that something would happen to me.
Filled with guilt, hope is still there.
I pray that the people of Iran don't give up. I pray that they continue. It's no longer a protest, it's a revolution now.
For Good Day DePaul, Shadenn Gomez.